Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca, Canada's authority on home ownership. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Hey, thanks for having me back on, Jim.
Ross, we're talking about the UN report on climate change just before we went on air, and because we talk about real estate. If you're a Canadian home buyer, can you contribute to not contributing to carbon emissions?
Well, you can do more than that if the government let us, Jim. Look at Canadian homeowners, Canadian families, Canadian households can eradicate. We can cut carbon emissions in this country by more than half ourselves. Just allow us to do it. I mean, you're in British Columbia, Jim. So, I mean, I don't know if British Columbians even understand how far ahead of the rest of the world builders are in British Columbia. Now, I'm not talking about the profiteers that are building these high-rise condos as a solution to affordability. I'm talking about the leadership that is taking place in British Columbia on the passive home front. You have window manufacturers in British Columbia that are being lauded around the world, yet you don't hear a word about them anywhere in Canada. You have engineered timber products from British Columbia that are lauded by architects around the world. You don't hear anything about it in the rest of Canada. Look at folks. It is totally practical today in 2021 with 2021's cost, 2021 technology to build and own a single detached home with a backyard that is carbon negative. It will actually extract carbon from the world. That home would cost you less than what homes are selling for in Canada today. But you have to fight against so many myths, the ones that we come on this show and talk about every week, Jim. Like these myths that are just mind-boggling in nature. Like, what you can do in a 2% 5-year mortgage rate world is something that you could never do before. There is no reason right now. So when we look at it, I'll explain it to you this way, Jim. We know that Canada needs over 1 million new backyards as of today. As our population grows, and more pressure is put on our Canadian system to cut carbons, you're going to need even more single detached homes. Everybody's going to talk about these green belts, the farm belts, these belts. Look, folks, if we're going to welcome people from around the world and we still want to make housing affordable and life-fulfilling for our children, we're going to have to make compromises. If you believe that you can keep stacking children one on top of another in taller and taller high-rise, and that's going to afford them any kind of a quality of life, then you're speaking to the wrong person, and you're speaking to less than 40% of the Canadian population. And I mean, of the population that has existed since Confederation. Canada is a nation of homeowners with backyards. Look, folks, a backyard is a great source of exercise. If you garden, it's also a great way to save $1,500 to $2,000 a year on your grocery bill. That's $1,500 or $2,000 after tax that you could invest in something else. You can put solar panels on your home today at the price that you can purchase them at today with 2% mortgage rate, and you pay less per month on your hydro bill than you would if you don't have those hydro panels on your house and are paying for it. The mindset that leads to constrained lives for people seems to be, to me, Jim, after studying this now very intensely for over 7 years, is that stakeholders want to get their piece of your pie, and they are willing to do anything to do it.
Yeah, local municipalities here in the lower mainland of BC don't have permitting rules that allow you to put solar panels up or to put up black water tubes on your roof to warm up your water heater water, which again will save you, 40% on your hydro bill. They don't technically allow it.
Okay, well, here's the question, Jim. Here's the question. Over 99% of all the homes that exist in Canada today are burning excess carbon because of the way those homes were built and the way that they have renovated. As we're speaking today, right now, there are over 30,000, there are over 230,000 brand new homes being built in Canada today that were not designed to reduce carbon. How is that going on? There is a building being built in Vancouver right now. I saw it in the architectural magazine. Mass timber and a passive designed home. Passive homes mean that they are the most energy efficient that you're going to build. They're the healthiest home that you're ever going to live in. These are being built in Vancouver today. But only one building? Why are governments not legislating that that's the only type of homes to build? There's 2 new high-rise going on in a few blocks away from me. Those high-rises are being built today no differently than they were built 10, 15 years ago. It's outdated technology. In Burlington, we have 2 major new high-rise developments just being proposed as a way to fulfill our growth requirement that the province of Ontario has for the city of Burlington. One of these buildings is going to be a 39-story tall building, something that eclipses anything even considered in this city before. So before I get into the complications of fire department, when you've got a new building 10 stories taller than the tallest building that exists, let me ask, how come nobody's talking about making that a passive building? It's 2% interest rate, 2% 5-year mortgage rate allow everyone to look at things totally differently. This was what's possible today, Jim. If we have the exact same technology today, back in 1990, you could have not implemented these proactive moves because of the interest rate. The government, instead of using these interest rates to better the lives of Canadians in general, they have decided that they're going to use these interest rates to make inequality greater, make their wealthy friends in the top 1% even wealthier, and they're going to keep the impoverished Canadians impoverished and homeless. And nobody's talking about it. The reason why I say they're not talking about it is because they're still believing myths that were created by those stakeholders to extract money out of their pocket. We don't look at it that way. Our goal is one goal alone. Keep as much of your income as you make. That's the sole focus of our business. And we use the context of studying the last 50 years of homeowners to frame our strategy. That's why I can say to your question, Jim, I can build a $500,000 single detached home that was an award-winning home in the 1950s that would be more than fulfilling for 60% of the Canadian population on a lot that is adequate enough to have a family garden, swing, pool for the kids, powering not only my home and my car and my spouse's car, but also putting more wealth into my bank account so that I can send my kids off to study engineering to form the next revolution that's going to be needed. So if I can do this, if our firm can show the data that is here, you cannot debate it. It's that black and white. Why are we still talking like it's 1990 when it's 2021 and interest rates for 5-year terms are as low as 1.54%?
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, a listener in Calgary asks, my mother just sold her home in Calgary, and when I asked her what the offer stated would be the commissions paid, she said it wasn't in the contract. She emailed the contract to me, and to my disbelief, she was right. No commissions were stated. Is this legal?
In Calgary, in Alberta, it's not only legal, it's the regulator participated in this scam being pulled off on Albertans. And you have to question, why is everybody in Alberta quiet about this? Look, in British Columbia, when you sign a offer to purchase, the amount of commission included in the offer is not shown. Even the commission rate has been totally removed from the contract. In Ontario, the amount of commission being paid is totally removed from the contracts. The percentage commission is removed from the contracts. The GST you're paying is removed from the contracts. Why? Your mother has been conned by a realtor in Calgary. And no matter what realtor she would have worked with, she would have been conned. She would have been conned, and not only that, the government of Alberta and the provincial regulator overseeing real estate and the organized real estate associations in Alberta are all complicit in this con. Look, folks, years and years and years and years ago, Century 21, when it was first coming out into Canada, had a form, and it was called a seller disclosure form. And that seller disclosure form showed what commissions were being paid. That seller disclosure form was specifically trained into their agent never to be shown. As a matter of fact, in those days, Century 21 training was to never let the seller see the offer until they were actually signing. You kept the offer to yourself as a sales rep. You were trained to write the key talking points of the offer down on a pad of paper, and then you were to talk about those talking points. You were never to show them the offer. We have gone from that, and it's not just Century 21. They were the number one real estate company in United States. So when they came into Canada, it only made sense that the rest of the industry would follow suit, and they did, to where we are today. And where we are today is this. People are paying commissions that they are not even aware that they're paying. And it is a big, big deal. And everybody wonders why housing is unaffordable. Well, it's unaffordable because realtors are afraid to tell you the truth. They're afraid to sit down with $1 million home buyer and tell the $1 million home buyer there is $50,000 of commission included in this purchase price. You're actually paying $950,000 for the house, and you're paying $50,000 of commission. It gets better than that. In Ontario, that would equate to a $6,500 GST charge. So not only are you paying $50,000 of commission, also included in that price is $6,500 of GST. Now, how bad is the fraud in most provinces? Well, go to your local real estate board and you'll see. They say one of the benefits of buying a resale home is that you don't pay any GST. It's a lie. It's a con. I can't believe that it was ever said. Obviously, you pay GST because GST is included in the purchase price. It's calculated on the commission. So it may not be the 13, the 7, the 5, the 12% that your province charges, but it's still there. On $1 million home, you pay $6,500 in GST in the province of Ontario. Be honest with people. Just tell them that it's there. And this is why.
So this is a government complicit scam because they don't want you to know how much tax you're paying.
Well, you know, Jim, I don't know if it's government complicit or it really truly is they are this ignorant to how the system works. I mean, we're doing numbers here. So this GST, so let me punch this in. Okay, so this is how we look at everything, Jim. This is how we look at everything because we want to be honest with people. Every dollar you save in housing, the cost of your housing, is a dollar that you have to invest. Notice what I said. You have a dollar to invest. I didn't say you have a dollar to spend on something else, a new TV, a new truck. I said you have a dollar to invest. You were already going to invest that dollar into owning a home. So just because you're not investing that dollar, forced to invest that dollar in the home anymore, why not just invest it in something else? We tell people the best place to invest is the bank who you have your mortgage with. Or maybe it's the bank you actually ignored because they were charging you too high of an interest rate. Maybe that bank makes even more profit. Maybe that's the bank you should actually own. Maybe you should own all 6 big Canadian banks in an ETF. We're not experts in which banks to own. We leave that to registered investment advisors. Ask them for the data that they have, which is the best bank or banks to own. But this is the rule. If you are going to invest a dollar into owning a house, and you don't have to invest that dollar in the house, then you need to invest it in something else. We simply prefer the bank lender who is carrying your mortgage. $6,500 invested with any Canadian bank by a simple timing the market direction is going to equate to $63,000 over 40 years. So the original investment expense of $6,500, you should be able to get a 6% return, and that equals $63,000  40 years from now. So because the realtors aren't honest with you, and they tell you you don't pay GST, and the governments don't, for whatever reason, don't charge them for fraud, the Competition Bureau doesn't charge them for fraud, because you paid $6,500 GST. Your lawyer will have a paperwork the day of closing, when you're under the most pressure. He's going to slip a piece of paper in front of you, which you're going to sign, that will have $6,500 of GST was paid. That's $63,000 of wealth you have lost, versus had you had simply invested in the bank who's holding your mortgage. It's insane. It's insanity. Look, we do calculations on what the cost of real estate commissions actually have. And we went back to 1992, when the average Canadian home was selling for $150,000. When the average Canadian home was selling for $150,000, it included $9,000 of commission. There's no GST at the time. It was $9,000 of commission. If you had got your mortgage with BMO, and instead of paying the realtor that $9,000, you had bought $9,000 worth of BMO stock, that you would have been $180,000 richer 30 years later in 2002. $180,000 richer. Now, you had to invest it as you're going along, but I'm just telling you, that's how much richer you would have been. You would have been richer, you would have made more money on that one little tiny thing than what the full price of the property you paid back in 1992. Realtors don't want you to know that. Realtors don't want you to think, wait a second, we're paying this brokerage $50,000 and they're going to work for maybe 8 or 10 hours on this deal. This is insane. We're paying these people $5,000 $8,000 an hour? People who often don't even have a high school, don't even have a degree. I mean, pretty much all Canadians have a high school diploma now. My dad had grade 10. People were paying him $1,000 an hour with a grade 10 education. Luckily for them, he had the experience and he had gone back to school and taken courses, but he still only had his grade 10. Okay, so now you're paying these realtors who haven't even sold, 1/1,000 of the number of homes as my father, and you're paying them thousands of dollars an hour. You would never do that if you saw it in paper. So this is the situation in Calgary. They're afraid of letting you know how much you're actually paying in dollars. It's always been a percent. They never have talked in dollars. It has always been a percent. The reason it was a percent, because 4% sounds way less than $10,000. 4% says way less than $50,000. Now they've taken it off the contract. So they have you sign a contract to work with them. 2 months later, when the house finally sells, they say, reference back to that contract of 2 months ago, which they didn't really explain to you in the first place. Is it legal? 100% it's legal, because the regulators enforce it. There isn't anyone in this country, any home buyer in this country, who is working with anyone other than our firm, who is fully represented in a transaction. There is no one who has that number before they sign on the dotted line. There is not a single brokerage in Canada, you notice I said, folks, who does this as part of their business practice. They hide it, and they get to hide it because your provincial regulators are now self-governed. Their board of directors are realtors. Realtors who have told a story since they first got their license, because the person who taught them was told a story before that, because the turnover in the real estate business is so quick and so rapid that no one's in the business long enough to learn anything. And those that are, keep their mouth shut, keep their head down, and sell. Those are the people you never hear talking. Yes, it's legal. It is totally unethical, and it wipes out a family's wealth in the process.
Ross, Javinder in Mississauga asks, with Toronto Real Estate Board announcing sales slumped in July, when or will we see that show up in prices?
Look at Javinder, as we said, I think last week's show. Everyone's being set up right now by the Canadian Real Estate Association. All of these different headlines that you're reading across the 69 real estate boards that exist in Canada are all now on a singular narrative to support Korea's narrative. That's what's going on. This is why you get headlines like this in BNN. Toronto housing euphoria fades as sales slump in July. I wonder what July in history is the only July where sales didn't slump in July. Why would that be a talking point? Well, that's to divert you from the benchmark price going up. The benchmark price is there to divert you from the average selling price. The average selling price is there to divert you from the sales mix. The sales mix, the average selling price, the benchmark there, are there to divert you from the amount of commission that you pay. They create fear. Vancouver July home sales were down 11.6% from June. Oh my gosh, that's the headline, folks. When was the last time in British Columbia sales increased in July? Well, if we go back to, we won't talk about COVID, because obviously sales increased in July in 2020 because the lockdown had just reopened. Well, what about 2019? Oh no, sales were off. Wow, staggering amount. No, July 2019, sales were up in July. They weren't down in June because the market had reversed. So you need to go back further to understand these talking points, because that was positive spin in 2019. Of course, in 2018, sales were down June to July. In 2017, they plummeted in July from June. In 2016, they were off a huge amount. Wow, staggering. 3,000 units. June was actually 33% busier than July was. 2015, sales in July were down over June. 2014, sales were down in July over June. 2013, sales were up in July of 2013 over June. Because that's when Poloz came into power, and he decided that interest rates were going to drop. And because in July of 2013, for sale by owners started to be added to your local MLS system. And they were bulk loaded, as it turned out, in that July, because the major for sale by owner companies bulk uploaded their sales data, which is why across the country you had this irregularity in every single MLS system where for sale by owners were a strong form of selling a home. Calgary home sales slowed in July, but still recorded a record high CREB. Oh, interesting. Okay, so the housing market goes, but it was a record. But the first thing they talked about was slow. Oh, Montreal home sales. New listings dropped by about 30% each in July. Oh, you're being set up, folks. You're being set up by organized real estate to try to get you to have fear of the housing market or false beliefs in the housing market for the fall of 2021. What's never happened before is this blanket cohesiveness in all MLS systems, because it was only a couple of years ago, I think in 2018, where the Canadian Real Estate Association finally gained access to local MLS boards' data. They never had access before. The Canadian Real Estate Association started doing reports for local MLS systems. The best report they do in Canada, the biggest, most thorough report that the Canadian Real Estate Association does for any MLS system, just happens to be my hometown in Burlington, the Hamilton Burlington Real Estate Board, the only real estate board in the country that refused to release a benchmark price. Wait a second. Nova Scotia doesn't release a benchmark price even today. So after the Real Estate Board of Hamilton Burlington caved 2 years ago, the only one left standing is the Nova Scotia Real Estate Board. Why? Because people in Nova Scotia in a small town aren't stupid. You can't say housing prices are going up 30% when your neighbors look around and say, wait a second, housing prices have gone up 30%. All that's happened is Joe's brand new builds up on the hill there are sold. So the average price went up because he's selling $600,000 houses. It's not because Joe's $200,000 house sold. You're being set up, folks. It's a con, Javinder. It is a legal con. You have no one to help you. You were out there on your own. You were going to spend multiples of your income because you make mistakes, because you believe these people. If I wasn't telling the truth, do you really think organized real estate would not be filing defamation charges against us? Why do you think we get to speak the truth? They fear defamation because discovery allows us to expose them. So they just let us go off on our own. Read those headlines. They're all setting up so the Canadian Real Estate Association is going to publish some data in the next week that you're not going to be able to understand. They're going to report a sales price that is being skewed radically in July. Their talking points are simply designed to keep that skew from being hidden, or to keep it hidden, so you won't notice what's really going on. Just like they hide the commissions by removing it from the contract that you actually signed to buy a home.
Carrie asks, Ross has talked about parents lending a mortgage to their children as being a good investment choice. However, our financial advisor at a major Canadian bank says that's a bad decision. Ross, why do you believe the opposite?
I don't believe the opposite, Jim. I mean, the data is, you can't argue the data. You can't argue this. What the financial advisor clearly wants to do is sell you another product. The financial advisor clearly does not want to tell you the truth and let you make a decision on your own.
That advisor probably gets a commission for getting you to buy a mortgage from that bank, right?
Of course. This is why advisors need to start bringing in homeownership into the discussion. You can't have a financial outlook in your life done if the family home is not part of that discussion. And here's why. Look, any parent out there who has their house paid off, okay, so this is a case where a parent has their house paid off. They trust their kids. They love their kids. Their kids are going to be okay to make the payment, okay? So these are the premises. You're also going to get your lawyer involved, and you're going to have a degree of separation. you're going to give your lawyer, and your kids know this, the legal authority or responsibility that if they don't make their payment, it is the lawyer's responsibility to register a lien and even foreclose on the home if possible. There's no need for any parents have to take up any of that responsibility today. I mean, arguably there's ways we could create a fintech model around this. But why, when parents should be able to do this? Your parent borrows money at 1.54% on a 5-year fixed mortgage, and they lend you that money at 3.54%. So your parents are going to make 2% a year. Now, what that means is a $100,000 mortgage, you are going to pay your parents $2,000 a year extra on top of what they're paying. So they're paying $1,540. You're going to pay an extra $2,000. So you're going to pay $3,540. You're going to give them $3,540 spread out between monthly. I would prefer to say bi-weekly payments, however you're paid by your employer. And all you're going to be doing is giving your parents the interest. Now, your parents all of a sudden, instead of getting 0.021% in their savings account, are now generating an extra 2% savings account. So why wouldn't they consider doing it? You don't need to pay off the mortgage over those 5 years. Don't even be worried about it. Pay off your regular mortgage. Now, you have to understand, folks, you also don't end up paying CMHC mortgage default insurance, which currently works out to about 3.9% on a 5% down mortgage. So in other words, if you buy a $100,000 house with $5,000 down, you're going to pay $3,900 in CMHC insurance. If it's $1 million house, you're going to pay $39,000. Okay, wouldn't it be better to give your parents that $3,900 per $100,000 than CMHC? Because you got to remember, you won't have that money to pay CMHC. What CMHC is going to want you to do is roll it into the mortgage and carry it for the next 25 years, paying it off for the next 25 years. Oh, just like your commission. Oh, just like your GST on the commission. Oh, just like anything else they can bury in that price. It is staggering, folks, what we watch go on, and with the buyers never being told. We have no problem with buyers accepting things, buyers making their decision, as long as they were shown the facts in dollars and cents. As long as they're told 100% up front, look, if you buy this home, here's an example for you folks. Here's the con that we hear all the time. Okay? Housing is so expensive in Toronto. Oh, interesting. Okay, so here's the truth. If you buy a $1 million house in Toronto or a $500,000 house in Windsor, you're going to pay the exact same amount of money out of your pocket. Not talking about what the house is going to gain. You're going to pay the exact amount of money out of your pocket over 40 years to own a $500,000 house than had you purchased a house in $1 million house in Toronto. Nobody talks about it. Why? Why don't they talk about it? Why doesn't anyone say that, did you know, if you buy a $500,000, a poorer family buys a $500,000 house in Windsor versus a richer family that buys a $1 million house in Toronto, the Windsor family has to pay an extra $2,800 a year in property tax. You buy a house that's half price, but you still pay $2,800 a year in property tax. Remember what we said in the earlier episode. $1 invested in housing can be $1 invested somewhere else. What if you simply invested those property tax dollars in the bank that holds the mortgage on your house, and you keep investing it every single year for the next 40 years? All of a sudden, there's the $500,000 discount you thought that you were getting is gone. It's wiped out. The family in Toronto made an extra $500,000. So the house that they bought for $1 million is no different than the house that you bought for $500,000. Except all of these narratives that are out there are not dollars and cents narratives. They're false narratives that allow you to be conned, fooled, misled, misdirected, deceived. This is not conspiracy theory. This is a black and white dollars and cents comparison. Look, folks, I can assure you that a brand new immigrant family buying a home in Brampton is not being told, $1 million home in Brampton, is not being told they're going to pay an extra $100,000 in property tax over the next 40 years. Brand new Canadian family, immigrant, they buy $1 million home, maybe 2 or 3 families getting together so they can get their foot in the housing market, right? New immigrant households, this is very common practice throughout Canadian history. Shared housing to start out with, and later when we got some cash, we'll get into our own houses. That family is going to lose $96,000 just in property tax. $1 invested in housing is a dollar that could have been invested somewhere else. No one wants you to talk about this. They want to take your money away from you. When we look at a difference between $1 million house in Toronto and $1 million house in Windsor, it's a $2.2 million property tax win in Toronto. Over 40 years, the buyer of $1 million property in Toronto will save $2.2 million in wealth versus had they bought $1 million home in Windsor. And that's before there's any change in the property's value. You can only imagine why housing prices are really as high as they are in Toronto. Because you're going to make an extra $2.2 million by not buying $1 million house in Windsor right from day one. Nobody's going to tell you that, are they, folks? Try to find that published somewhere. Try to find out how much your land transfer tax costs you. Try to find somewhere where it's published that 12% of the purchase price that you're going to spend is fees and costs when you're closing a house. You're never going to see that. You're going to see a number that's half that amount. Well, how come they're leaving the commission out? The commission's buried in the purchase price. Wait a second. If I bought $1 million house in Toronto and I paid cash, and instead I said, wait a second, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to give the owner $950,000 or $945,000, $944,000 we'll give them. We're going to give our real estate agent $50,000, and we're going to pay the GST ourselves of $6,500. So in other words, we're still going to pay the $1 million. We're just going to write 3 checks instead of 1. Well, did you know that your property tax will be $300 a year lower on that $1 million house? And that if you took that dollar that you would have invested in the cost of your home and invested it somewhere else, that's $60,000 at the end of 40 years. You need to get the numbers, folks. You need to get the data. It doesn't appear on CMHC, doesn't appear on the bank site, doesn't appear on real estate broker sites, doesn't appear in any of these wealth magazines anywhere in North America. You need to see the numbers in black and white, and remember, if you're going to invest $1 in housing and you don't need to invest it, you should be investing it somewhere else and not spending it.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross, you can send them to us at info@housestreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.